To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open with public comment. Is there any public comment?
I have.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Karen Kylius. I'm the detention center nurse. I've been over there almost 11 years. I want to talk about community and transparency. I want the community to know that that the commissioners are not working with the detention centers union, and the staff over there are the lowest paid in Montana. We had a union meeting last week, and we were offered compromises, but no pay raises. And this doesn't affect me because I'm done over there in a few more months. But it affects public safety and the ability of the detention center to stay open. It's run at capacity for the last several years, and it's made money, but the commissioners take some money away to use for other projects. The detention center officers get their experience and training here, but they don't stay. They move on to a better paying job and in another county. And it costs hundreds of dollars to train a detention center officer. And then people wonder why people don't stay in this community and work. And it seems to me like the commissioners are unwilling to listen to the voice of the people and are forthcoming in their meetings and planning. And a good example is the solid waste project. The commissioners found money to pay the staff for operating the solid waste, and then for another wage for a new employee. Detention staff have a lot more responsibilities than anybody here. But not only do they have to do their job, but oftentimes they have to deal with medical things because there's no need to have a nurse there more than 3 mornings a week. But other issues come up when there's not a nurse there, and the detention officers have to deal with it and deal with any medical emergencies. And there's only one detention center officer on per shift because there's no money to pay for another one. Just last week, there was a fight in one pod, and then over in another pod, there was a guy having a seizure. And the detention officer had to deal with those 2 emergencies all by themselves at one time. It's not safe. It's not safe for the officer. They put their life in jeopardy when things like this happen because all of the other inmates could jump them or try to escape. And I just feel like it's very important for you guys to work with the union and to get these officers up in their pay to where they want to work here and they want to stay. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think that we need to honor Karen by just accepting what she said, but just correcting a couple of things. We had negotiated with the union. If you guys want to expand on that, you certainly can. But I think one of the most important things that you have been misadvised on, and I believe the citizens have been misled on, is, you said the money is taken away from the detention center and used for other projects. That is entirely 100% not true. The detention center money stays with public safety. It isn't used for anything. It is not used for planning. It is not used for anything else. It can only stay with the detention center or public safety. And I just want to make sure you know that and the citizens know that. Anything said to the contrary is not correct, and we can prove it to you in the budget documents if you care to sit down and look at them.
Okay, I was told differently by the undersheriff.
Well, maybe we can work with him today and help him understand that as well. So thanks for bringing that up so that we can address it. And I'm going to just say one other thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, since public comment, there doesn't seem to be any more. There's been an awful lot of misleading of citizens, Karen, you're not the only one. Too often, unfortunately, our newspaper has a summary, which is kind of a fictionalized account of what happens in these meetings. The whole story is not being told, just what a few, one or two, want the public to know, not the full story. That's not okay. Front page articles that are opinion pieces, front page articles that scare the public by saying that the county is broke. It's not. That's not true. We're frugal. That's not broke. There's a couple of errors that I did pass on to Bobby that are in the summary that I think need to just be brought out to kind of illustrate this point. There's no new MACO policy that this commission approved. That would be approved by MACO. The planning board has been a 5-member board. We established that in the meeting that it was written about 7 or 8 years ago and had quite a bit of conversation about that. It didn't appear anywhere in the summary. That was entirely false. And then the other one is the WIC services. The public health office is no longer doing WIC. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. Right now, Lewis and Clark County is negotiating with the hospital, Broadwater Health Center, to provide WIC services for people. That's incredibly important that people understand and have the full and honest truth to. So, thank you, Karen, for bringing this opportunity up to kind of talk about this and share some facts. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
So we'll go on to, is there any other public comment? We'll move on to our certificate of survey review.
Good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
Morning.
Now, I have a certificate of survey for review, but it is a family transfer, so I am unsure of the procedure from, if right now we're still doing it as it was, or if the procedure has been, I don't think a formal procedure has been adopted. So I was unsure how to proceed. So Nicole is here also for us to discuss that, and then, or I can just do this on the old version. I just don't know how to proceed.
I'd like to have the discussion and then.
Yeah,
look
me
at
too.
the- Okay.
I'm gonna pass these out for your review as well. These are the COS, there's one for each of you there. The COS, Certificate of Survey Review Procedure that was adopted May 12th, 2014. So if you look at number, let's see. Okay, number 5, the surveyor makes the changes, along with any correspondence from the ELS and county sanitarian to the commissioners, or presents the COS to the commissioners for their review and approval. So number 5, if you would like the landowner to come in and provide the affidavit on family transfers, I believe we need to change this procedure. I do have the affidavit for this family transfer that Bernadette is speaking about, but the landowner is not here to make a presentation or for you to ask questions of.
It looks like that was an oversight that we can correct.
Correct, yes.
But, yeah, I do think that the landowner should represent themselves with the affidavit portion of the process. I understand they can't do the survey work, that's a professional skill that you guys have a lot of training on, but I think for the presentation, we should have the landowner. I agree.
And can I ask a follow-up question on that then? Would you want that to be for every survey? Boundary relocations, agricultural exemptions, mortgage surveys, what am I missing? Greater than 160s?
Not greater than 160.
That doesn't come here, never
No.
mind. So any COS, I guess, in the future? Or do you want to partition that out and say, family transfers only, the landowner attends, and every other certificate of survey you would like the surveyor here? Or would you like the landowner here for all of them?
In my opinion, in other counties, the landowner brings it, they go through a process, usually with a review, like with the planner and such, and then it's brought forward. The landowner in some counties has to be there, not in others. But if a question arises, then the commission says, we got questions, the landowner needs to be notified to come in. The surveyor doesn't, because we're under pretty much the examining land surveyor. So, in my opinion, there's really no questions I can answer for you, because I'm bound by law and the examining land surveyor. The questions that may come up of like a whys or that sort of thing would be questions that the landowner would answer. And I know in the past I've, made comments like, well, they're building a house for this or that. And talking with Nicole, I said, that's what I understand from the landowner, but I don't really necessarily feel comfortable saying that. That's what they've told us. And, I'm just passing on what they've said, so, it'd probably be better if you could question them directly.
Well, I know in the past, just the small amount that I've done so far, it was always been helpful when the landowner's been here.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that they probably should be.
I like the idea too of the landowner seeing the process for themselves. How we make the decision and the questions that come up. So I think that's actually a good idea that other counties follow. So,
Okay, yeah.
So do we want to change this to, so how do we want to reword number 5 then?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
You can add in here, because obviously, so number 5, it states the surveyor makes changes and presents the COS. I think if the surveyor makes the changes, of course, it has to be the surveyor, and the landowner presents the COS. To the commission.
I like that.
And not to put more work on you, but I think it would actually be better if the planner presented it and the landowner was there to answer questions. Just because, not that I'm trying to put more work on your plate, but some landowners, I don't know if are equipped to come forward and say, they don't understand. They can answer questions, but they may not understand what they're even asking you guys to look at.
I think that's a good idea. And as much as we are nice guys and try and get along with everybody, I would think that for a landowner, this can be intimidating. So to have that guidance from the planner probably would be a really nice service to provide.
You wouldn't even have, or someone that you could send.
Do we still need to document that family land transfers have to have the affidavit, or?
Yes, that's not changing this.
Is the affidavit mentioned in here anywhere?
It is not. So it states, to the commissioners for their review and signature on a separate checklist. That will still happen. The affidavit does not have any place for the commission to sign. So it would still be the old or the standard checklist that you would sign. But the affidavit is what the landowner would bring forward, and you would still sign that checklist. That's how I would anticipate that working anyway.
So it's part of the process, but not necessarily the review procedure for
Correct.
us. Makes sense.
Similar to, with the boundary location, there are deeds, that's not called out in here, that's part of the process. This is the guideline for the surveyors and for the landowners. So maybe we could change number 5 to state surveyor makes changes and the planner and the landowner present the COS.
Yes.
And I know Nicole and I both talked too, it'd be nice to have a standard form or some consistency so that like the family transferred isn't totally different than the others. Make it like a continuation or these pages are family transfer, page 3 is boundary location, page 4 per se. So you've got one form to deal with.
I think that'd be a good idea. So does this, do we need to have the landowner present for this COS then, or
It is a family transfer.
what's that?
It is a family transfer,
Oh, okay.
so I can reach out to the landowner and ask him
Okay.
to be here next Monday to present this to you.
Do you have the affidavit already too?
I do.
Okay.
Then I won't present it.
All right.
I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette.
We'll go to Nicole Brown, Community Development Director, Gebhardt Estates subsequent minor subdivision request for final plat approval.
Super. I left the final plat upstairs on my desk, so Bernadette's running to grab that for me. I'm gonna slide over here so I can issue documents easier. So I'm stalling until she gets back here with that plat.
When did this one start, Nicole?
January 9th, 2017.
Okay.
So it would expire January 9th, 2020.
Okay.
I knew you didn't ask that question, but throwing that out there. I don't think I have a preliminary plat in here either. Nope. She'll be down here with that plat in a moment. Do you want me to continue with the conditions of approval, and then when she gets here, we'll throw the plat out, okay? So condition number 1. The applicant shall contribute 2/50ths of the cost to upgrade the existing road, Carroll Drive, to Broadwater County subdivision road standards for a number 1 local road. It shall be required that they obtain a current estimate. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. So there is an estimate along with a receipt showing that they have paid that dollar amount. I think it was $1,312.
Yes.
Is that right? preliminary plat. And so this is a subsequent minor subdivision. This was the Conrad minor subdivision, lot one, well, lot 2A, but 1 lot, 2 lot, and then this was the 3rd lot that they're now splitting. So that is why it's a subsequent minor. It's a 2-lot subsequent minor subdivision.
Sorry about that, Daryl.
That's okay. Is this where the, what will I say,
Most
turnaround, the,
Sad Lane is there.
huh?
Most Sad Lane is
Yeah.
that you were pointing at there,
Right.
yeah.
Does this road actually go all the way through? I thought there
It
was
does.
a round, it does?
There is a cul-de-sac there,
Yeah, so
but
I
it
thought
does
there
go
was-
all the way around as well.
Okay, because that's what I remember seeing, it was a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, there is a cul-de-sac there, and that was put in with the Conrad minor subdivision. But it actually does go all the way around. This is part of the Meadowlark Meadows subdivision that was originally platted 70s, mid-70s. And that road loop system was platted at that time. I'm not going to get into whether or not it's public or private, I'm just saying that those
Right.
roads were platted. So, it does go all the way
And
through.
these are the 2 lots that are being created as tracks, 2D and 2C, or the
That's
ones
correct.
that are being- Okay.
But there will only be one additional home added to it because there's a home already located on 2C.
That's the thought.
All right, number 2, assigned and approved Montana Department of Transportation right-of-way agreement equal or greater than the county subdivision road requirements, which are which are currently at a width of 24 feet must be received. So this is a letter from the MDT, our local supervisor at the time, Jeff DeMar, stating that it does meet that requirement. Number 3, the applicant shall provide proof of legal and physical access to the subdivision. So this is showing all of the access roads as public roads to the subdivision. Number 4, Loki Lane must be designed in accordance with the Broadwater County Subdivision Road Standards, stamped by a professional engineer, and submitted to the County Planning Department for review and approval. And just to, for point of reference, Loki Lane is the north-south road that runs between Carroll Drive and Most Avenue. A letter from the PE shall be provided to the county stating that the road and any improvements have been constructed in accordance with the approved plans and specifications, and that he or she has completed an inspection of the road and any improvements. A turnaround meeting the requirements of the Broadwater County Subdivision Road Standards shall be constructed within the 1,500-foot distance from US Highway 287, or the commission shall grant them access to utilize the existing Mostad Lane easement to allow for a loop road system. So to answer that question, there is a cul-de-sac there, and this is a loop road system. Even though the commission is not necessarily granting access to that, I think you're all aware of what has transpired through the Mostad Lane discussion with the courts, and so I think it's not at this table necessarily. Number 5, a weed management plan for, and I'm sorry, do you want me to slow down? Okay. A weed management plan for the existing development shall be submitted to the county weed district for review and approval. All specifications and requirements of an approved plan shall be met. So this plan was approved in 2017. Going to proceed with number 6. I do not have anything to pass around for this item. The applicants will be required to submit the final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. So I have received that file. Number 7, there's 2 pages to this. The applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft a fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision, in accordance with the Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan shall be equally acceptable to the FPAHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to agreement by the final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply, as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal. So there's a letter from Broadwater County Rural Fire District Chief Ed Schindel requesting $1,000. The follow-up page to that shows the receipt of that money into the Broadwater County Rural Fire District Fund. Number 8 is the plat itself. The final plat shall be prepared in accordance with the applicable state survey requirements, Montana Subdivision and Plating Act survey requirements, and the county subdivision regulations. Number 9, the ditch easement shall be shown on the final plat. And that is shown, where is it showing the ditch? It's along this boundary here. Underground irrigation easement within this.
Is this the ditch easement they're talking about? The Montana ditch easement?
Possibly this and also this, because this is an underground, this Montana ditch easement, this is, while the easement is still there, the ditch has not been used for some time, is my understanding, but this irrigation easement still is.
Oh, okay.
So, in any case, they're both shown on there. Number 10, the book and page reference to the restrictive covenant filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. A, notification of the potential health risk from radon concentrations, and that such risk can be evaluated through soil tests and mitigated through radon abatement techniques incorporated into structures. B, a notification that all dwelling units within the subdivision should be constructed to specifications which meet or exceed equivalent provisions in the applicable state building code for this seismic zone, which is Zone 3. C, any additional replacement or relocated utility lines shall be installed underground in accordance with county subdivision regulations unless otherwise determined by the utility provided. D, any exterior lighting shall be directed downward to minimize visibility beyond the property lines. E, a waiver of the right to protest to join a special district for the purpose of providing community water and/or wastewater treatment system improvements and/or maintenance. F, a restrictive covenant binding the landowner, any heirs, successors, and assigns, and all future owners of property within the subdivision, agreeing therein to hold Broadwater County harmless and indemnify Broadwater County from all claims, demands, obligations, suits, causes of action, damages, and liability, including the county's costs and attorney's fees arising in any manner whatsoever out of or relating to the existence, use, operation, repair, and/or maintenance of the following: earthquake fault zone and any seismic activity, and water availability. G, all cats and dogs must be restrained, penned, or otherwise under the control of their owner at all times. H, notification of the presence of agricultural operations in the vicinity. I, each lot shall be maintained in a clean, attractive, and weed-free manner. Noxious weeds must be pulled, sprayed, or cut prior to seed maturity. J, a waiver of right to protest joining a rural improvement or maintenance district for the purpose of road maintenance, mosquito control, or equitably funding parks and maintenance of parks. K, address numbers shall be clearly marked at the driveway entrance to each lot and be easily identified from the road. L, a notification that lots in the subdivision may be subject to impact fees if in place prior to lot sales. Said improvements are not installed, you don't care about that, I'm sorry, we're just doing conditions. I'm just going to read you the entire findings of fact report. 11A, prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall A, provide proof that all taxes and special assessments assessed and levied on the property are paid for the current tax year, including any past delinquencies. This is the tax bill coming around. And 11B, provide documentation, an abstract of title or platting certificate showing that the applicant is the lawful owner of the property with the apparent authority to subdivide the same, showing the names of lien holders or claimants of record and the written consent to the subdivision by the owners of the land, if other than the applicant, and any lien holders or claimants of record against the land. And that is it for the conditions.
it appears that they have met all the requirements that we set forth in the preliminary subdivision plat. Thank you very much. So I will move that we grant final approval of the Gebhardt minor, subsequent minor subdivision.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Motion made and second to approve the Gebhardt Estates subsequent minor subdivision. Any further discussion? We'll vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I was wondering how long it would take her to come forward.
There's some extra pens to expedite the process. I have added that into my budget for next fiscal year. More special pen.
Triple your line item.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. Bill?
I don't know if I'll have to do this today, but it'll be up there after. Right, afternoon.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Move
Nicole.
on to our 10:30 Trust Board budget submission, contracts for review, approval, grant standards, bylaws.
Here's revised grant guidelines and the grant application.
That's what you said via email, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Just printed. And then revised bylaws. There was a typo. I think Daryl pointed out one typo. But yeah, you did have these. Yeah, not changed from the email that I sent.
Perfect, thank you. Debbie, where was the typo? Do you know?
What's that?
Where was the typo in the bylaws?
Was it attachment, the wrong number?
Oh, okay,
It was just, I don't remember. Number 4 maybe?
okay.
Was it 5?
4 or 5.
Yeah. 5.
It was incomplete. It didn't have the
Yeah.
correct. Daryl pointed it out.
Okay,
That's all, literally all it was in the bylaws.
well, based on our review from last week, I move that we accept the bylaws as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept and approve the bylaws of the Broadwater County Trust Board as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the grant standards?
I would really like to see what is eligible, what isn't. And something I did not think about until this morning is an appeal process. Most grant applications have an appeal process. That might be something to think about. When your board was created, was there is part of that creation of what's eligible for grants, or is there?
Recreation,
Okay.
the only criteria. Broadwater County Recreation. We left that as open as we possibly could.
Okay.
I know you guys monitor funds heavily because your constraints, we bring gifts, we're over $1 million today. So,
Yeah.
I think you've done tremendous for this county.
we've been fortunate.
Yeah, we have. We've been very lucky, and I'm very proud of the work that you've done.
I will be making a very small change at the top where it has Virgil's home number. He just informed me he'd rather have a cell phone on there,
Okay.
so I will change that.
Maybe Debbie told you we don't have a budget today. We meet first of the month, or the 9th.
July 9th.
July 9th, and we'll get together then and add in the stuff you guys have recommended and
Okay.
adjust our budget accordingly.
I guess I have one question. If you have a project on private land, how do you deal with that? Or have you had any yet?
We have, yeah, we have kind of, and we talk about it. We haven't excluded it, we haven't said, no, that won't work. We've said, well, we'll study it, all of a sudden leases, caveats, who owns what, is it in the public interest? So but we haven't excluded it, because we didn't want to box ourselves in case something we can't foresee would prevent a good project, so.
Okay.
I can't recall. I didn't bring it.
grant paperwork, the grant application.
It's lacking specificity for the applicant. I know that I understand the request for keeping it vague. My concern continues to be from the perspective of the citizen. This is their money. And I think it should be clear to any citizen who's interested in a grant, what is eligible, what isn't, what they need to do to be successful. There's a number of spots in the application that do not match the standards, so I think that needs to be looked at and corrected. I'd like to get this out the door for folks, but it has to be clear for the public who write the grants, who are interested in promoting recreation, so that we don't have any more questions of why did they but we didn't. There's just been I'm responding to complaints from the public, and I'm gonna leave it at that, but no, I'm not going to move or vote for this as is. It needs to be, a lot of the things talked about last week need to be incorporated in some way for clarity for the public. Again, it's their money. That's all I'm gonna say on it.
So I guess, how do you guys do that right now? I mean, so if somebody approved or denied, whichever way it is, do you guys usually meet with them and discuss the reasons why, or?
We do,
Yeah.
at length, and
Okay.
we generally, they come in, present it, we study it generally for a month, because that's, and what we're after as much as anything is public input.
Sure.
And rarely do we deny much. So it's, we're pretty liberal, because we've got the funds to do it. If it falls under recreation, doesn't compromise somebody else, we try to approve it, so.
Right.
But we try, that's why we leave it to recreation, we try to keep it as broadly based, and if there's some way they can paint it as recreation, we try to approve it. And the good cover-up for us, or the catch-all for us is we get to bring it to you and say, we think we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's. We're willing to spend the money. You guys have to sign off. So, you know, we've got $1 million, but we can't spend a dime until
Sure.
both boards approve it, so.
Well, I guess from what I see, I don't see any changes. I mean, the way it's written looks good to me.
I agree with Steve. I'd say 99% of the time, you guys have done your due diligence, and I believe you have acted in the benefit of the county. There have, however, been questions and complaints. I'm not gonna go into specifics in an open meeting, to protect the rights of those folks, who have complained and didn't wanna come forward. I think for your protection, for your credibility as a board, it's important that you have some of that information here for the public. I wanna squelch those complaints moving forward. And for one, your standards state that there are specific requirements. Reports, so you guys know where your money went and was spent where it was supposed to. The application says it's preferred or appreciated, not required. That language should mirror itself. A suggestion made last week was just take this, transfer it into your guidelines, rather than having two different sets, because the two do not mirror each other in language. That's an issue. One of the places I'm coming from is there is currently, not in Broadwater County, but a very similar situation. There is a lawsuit that's been filed by somebody who did not get a grant, challenged that there wasn't enough specificity, and they're covering that through a lawsuit. I want to avoid that, and I just think that having some clarity here could help us in the future. So again, I think it's just good policy moving forward. So, and I would be more than happy to speak with any of you one-on-one, and share some of those specifics. I still won't share their names, but they need to be honored too. So that's where I'm coming from, just so you guys understand. And I would be happy to share with you guys the specifics in a closed door again, with the interest of protecting the rights of the.
Well, I mean, I think we need to give these guys an idea of what we're asking, because they can't read our mind.
And I said a lot last week. I would hand off the ball to you guys and absolutely welcome. Perhaps we need a joint working meeting. Maybe that would be an answer. Just throwing out ideas.
I think that everything that I have a concern with here is basically 7, 8, and 9. What it pertains is operation, maintenance, when the project's completed in a management plan. I think my issue with it is that some of these projects, like the wheelchair lift at the Silos boat ramps it seems to me that maybe there wasn't clarification to them that they had to maintain that. Is there an outlet for machinery and maintenance of that machinery, or is it for the, I mean, how do you cover that? Does the purchase of the machinery involve, and then once you purchase the machinery, the people that do the project have to maintain the machinery?
In the grant they submitted, they said they would take over the maintenance.
Okay.
That was in the grant they submitted, so we just approved the grant they submitted. But we do try to cover that on every application. Who's in charge of maintenance, so, and that was an extremely minor one, but, you know, there could be big dogs out there and all of a sudden there's $50,000 a year maintenance bills. So we always cover maintenance, in the agreement, in the application.
You always cover you don't necessarily cover the maintenance, but you cover that there's a program to continue and have that maintenance.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
and who's responsible for that.
okay.
And generally, we require that whoever the grant applicant is covers the maintenance. And that's what the applicant accepted that when they put in for the grant.
Okay. Yes, Virgil?
Those are issues that we try to be very careful with. You build, you put up a project or building or this sort of thing. And if the group that requests cannot maintain the building, or whatever it happens to be, then the trust board and the commissioners become the maintenance people, who provide the funds for the maintenance. And we try to avoid that if we possibly can, because there's gonna be times when some of the maintenance will become major. We try to identify those things early on, so we're not bleeding the account. At the moment, we have sufficient funds. There's been times in the past there was nothing. So those are the issues that we try to address in as much depth as we can.
I'm gonna digress back to the wheelchair lift. It was Walleyes Unlimited and Sharon Walker, I think, is it JSA or?
SJS.
They signed off, they would take care of maintenance in the application, so.
So I guess the question I have is probably relates more to the softball field in that situation, but if SJS is out of that operation, and then the walleye people are dysfunctional, where does that go to? Which is basically what happened with the softball field. The softball association no longer exists. So now we have a softball field that has no funds, no maintenance. And then that comes back to the county now.
In that particular case, if it comes back to the county, then the Recreation Planning Board then becomes involved from my point of view, okay? That would be the representative group that assists the commission in taking care of it.
Okay.
That's not in their charter for the creation of that recreation board, so that wouldn't necessarily be something the trust board could determine. That would be up to us to determine how we would address that. But I do wonder about maybe an appeal process that includes the recreation board, since that was just brought into it. So perhaps a number 6 under the goals and standards that states, if any applicant does not feel that their application was given due diligence, they may appeal through this process that includes the recreation board. And then go to the commission and then to the trust board again. What do you think about that?
I'm not excited about it,
Okay,
personally.
so an appeal process, what would you suggest?
Who would conduct the appeal?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So any grant out there that you apply for, there's always an appeal process, especially if it's concerning public money. So, Bike Trail. Bike Trail years ago, there was a series of grants. The last one was to be on the trust board, and that was denied. An appeal process probably would have been an appropriate step at that point. What would be an appropriate appeal process? Or another one, the search and rescue turned in an application that was incomplete. It came to us, we couldn't accept it because none of the checklists had been done in your application. We sent it back to you, and there was a year delay on that. What would be some of the things that we could do to streamline that? Search and rescue should have been able to get started a year earlier. They couldn't because what came to us was incomplete. What's a, I guess that one doesn't really go to an appeal process, but that's what I'm looking for is how do we make it more clear for the public what their opportunities are, what their rights are? So I don't think this is tough at all to come to some language. But I will say, we went through the specifics last week. You have in your goals and standards that reports are required. Let's marry that to your general grant guidelines, to Daryl's point of let you know what we want. Maybe play the video of last week's meeting, and just go through and do that, or use this and just substitute it, because this is more clear anyway. And then I would suggest maybe if somebody does not agree, they are welcome to come back to the trust board. I don't know, whatever you guys want to brainstorm amongst yourselves, you are the trust board. All I'm saying is, if you look at any other agency that grants money, you will see an appeal process, and I think that's appropriate to add. And clarity. So that's all I'm asking for. It is not a heavy lift by any means.
We'll certainly visit about it, it's about the appeals process. We've studied this, and there may be some articulation that may be cleaned up, but we've really tried to cover all the bases. And those very few applications that we have turned down, we've actually almost generally asked them to modify it to meet the criteria. And we would advise them, you don't meet it because of here or here. And when it came back the second or third time and it still didn't cover our needs, we finally turned it down, but we're not heavy-handed.
And I think that's what we all want to avoid. That's why clarity is so important.
And anytime you're on a public board dealing with money, not everybody's gonna be happy, as you guys are well aware, so.
Yeah.
Some of the people, some of the time.
I appreciate the goals and standards, though. Huge step forward. Really appreciate that.
We put a lot of time and thought in that. That's, Virgil did an excellent job on that.
I can tell. It's well done. It's very clear. Again, if you guys would just switch it over to your guidelines, I think you'd have everything covered.
Yes.
Yes. Since it all falls under recreation, does the state not have a set of guidelines for recreation? Because recreation is recreation a right or is it a privilege? Of the act,
Yeah.
to do, not what you own. You have the right to own whatever you're using to do, but is recreational activities actually a privilege under state law?
I don't know.
Because she said that it was a right, so I was kind of curious.
It would be a right if you can afford it.
It should